Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Chris up there too. Hello, Chris.
All right.
Hello.
Looks like we got
Look at all these great folks coming in early. Hello, everybody. Ed and Gregory and Vincent and Rob and Daniel and George and Julian and Shashi Kiran is here from India. I love that.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Oh, and Ed Ocho. I guess so. And
You're on mute there, Shashi Kiran. Oh, here we go. Yes. Okay. Yes. Very good. Okay. Namaskar. Oh, wonderful. Well, it's great to see everybody. I don't know if it's as hot for everybody else as it is here. It's absolutely, really a beautiful day, but I see you raising your head up there, Ed. Looks like you're sweltering in a greenhouse. Hey, unmute yourself. Where are you at? Where are you?
I'm at Downhome Farms.
Where's that?
Go ahead and speak on it.
Hey, we're over here in Nevada County at Downhome Farms. I'm a cottage permit over here. I love everything that y'all do over at Swami Select. You are a true inspiration to my farm. Thanks.
Daniel, thank you so much. And I bet it's probably just as hot or not hotter over in Nevada County right now than Mendocino.
Yeah, it's about 110, I think. I'm not really sure.
Oh, my. We're not that hot here. Let me just check right now.
Wow. And meanwhile, Chris Van Hook, are you up there in Crescent City where it's probably nice and cool?
Yep, I'm here in Crescent City, but it's warm here too. I mean, people don't realize it that, you know, after what, 7-8 years, the redwoods are really starting to show it. You know, some of them are just falling over with no warning anymore. So it's a drought everywhere. Yeah. It's a drought everywhere. Yeah.
So even up there, you're not getting the fog like you used to get all the time, huh?
No more fog. No more fog. Starry nights, clear starry nights, you know.
That's
not good.
Bizarre.
Strange.
Oh, tell us climate change isn't happening. It's happening big time.
Fast. Okay.
It's really happening. What about in the city, Gregory? What's it like down there?
It's beautiful. We got about an 85, 90 afternoon in my grow, and yesterday it was 100.
Whoa,
100?
in San Francisco?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds pretty perfect. Great day to go for a walk in Golden Gate Park.
I wish I could.
Yeah, well, we're about 80 degrees. I just checked the temperature in the shade.
In the shade. Yeah, it probably got up to about 95 in the sun today up here, but it's pretty nice actually. Let's see. Where's that? George, where are you at? You gotta unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me? I'm in Connecticut, and it's been warm. Today it was a little bit cooler. We were able to. My wife and I took the kids outside. We went for a nice walk and stuff. But I don't deal with the heat well at all, so I still have my air conditioner going anyway.
So
Nice.
where in Connecticut?
West Haven, right next to New Haven, right there on the shoreline.
You guys are about to legalize.
Yes, we legalized today. As a matter of fact, the governor, he's signing it tonight. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's
Yes. Finally, we're going to have grow rights here now, which is great because I was already, I had my medical card and I've had it now for a few years. It's a tremendous help with my anxiety and my pain. I've had a couple of surgeries from a work incident that happened a couple of years ago. So between pain, physical and emotional, the cannabis has really just been the thing that helped. So to be able to finally start to grow my own and not have to worry, because I have small kids at home, so that was always a concern. It's going to be really great. It's going to be really great to be able to control what I'm going to put in my body now. So I'm very excited about it.
nice.
Oh, great.
Nice.
So,
That's
and then,
fantastic.
So Chris is going to help us work on how we make everything we put into the plants organic.
Yeah, that's what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, we've known Chris since what? Over 10 years now, Chris, I believe.
Oh yeah, you guys are one of my, our first farmer members. So I know it's just always great to be with you guys. I miss seeing you in person.
I know. Tell us about it. We definitely do as well. Look at that blue sky you got up there in Crescent City.
Yeah, I just decided I better sit up.
With Rob, I wanted to check in with you because you're in Denver, right?
I'm actually in Ohio, but our headquarters work for is in Denver, and they are talking about it's super hot there. We actually got a cool day here today, but my wife tells me it's supposed to be super hot tonight and lots of big storms with the warm front coming again. So that'll be good to sit on the front porch and smoke a joint and watch the storms roll in.
Wow. Well, I guess it is summertime after all. And Jack, what's it like up in Oregon?
We finally got some rain, which was nice. It's warm today, low 80s. I can't complain. Really beautiful weather up here.
That's good.
Nice. Yeah, I bet it is. I bet it's kind of perfect up there. As you get the best of all worlds up there. And I wanted to know if Shashi Karan, are you there? Can you hear us? Can you take yourself off mute? I'd love to know what it's like in India today, in Karnataka. Maybe he can't hear me. Okay, that could be a connection of who knows what kind. But Rick is here. All right, Rick, very nice to see you. Rick is going to be our guest on the next smoking session with Swami, coming up 2 weeks from today. And really nice to see you here today.
Yeah.
You're on mute there. You're on mute, Rick. We can't hear you.
There. Is that better?
There you go. Yeah, it's better.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's great to see you guys. Great to meet you. And Swami, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to that one too, quite a bit.
So I'm madly rolling a joint here for our.
Yeah, Swami's getting ready for his
sesh, for the sesh.
Doing it right now. Right. Okay. Rolling it up for the sesh. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe we can. What time is it? Maybe we are not quite 4:20 yet, but we can start a little early, maybe. I guess.
Oh, this is interesting. We did get the report from India, though. Thank you, Shashi. So in Karnataka, which is in South India, it's 4:42 in the morning. Wow, you're a trooper to be awake right now, and it's 22 degrees Celsius. So network issue. He can only text right now, but that's great. You can hear us. I'm so glad. And 22 Celsius is what? Like that's pretty warm, right? I can't remember what that is.
It's 4 in the morning. I'll have to look up.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I can check right here.
Well, this is the wonder of the internet, is that we have people from all over the world come to these things. And, that's really the benefit of COVID, that we learned how to do this so that we can connect, because, it'd be pretty hard to have all of you guys in the same room otherwise.
Yeah, right.
So what's 22?
22 is about 74 degrees.
Oh, at 4:20 in the morning. Did you say 4:42? Oh, they just passed the 4. That's right, because India is half an hour off of the hour from us.
Yeah, okay.
Just to confuse things.
Right.
India likes to do that.
Anyway, so today our guest is Chris Van Hook, who runs a program called Clean Green
Certified.
Clean Green Certified. And we've been part of that program since 2011. And it's a great thing where he comes out and he takes a little sample of our soil from different beds and looks at the leaves. And he wants to make sure that we have insect bites on our leaves, right? It's one of the things he looks for. Because if no insect bites on your leaves, it means you're spraying them with something. So anyway, then he sends it off to a lab and so on. And then every time we have some sort of, someone comes up and says, oh, this is the newest thing for cannabis. You got to use this new ingredient. It's all magic and so on and so forth. First thing we do is we send it off to Chris with a label, and he'll check it out and see if it's then falls into the organic program. So
Chris, when was it you actually started Clean Green? It was a couple of years before we came on board?
It was. We actually started Clean Green in 2004. And
wow.
And no one was particularly interested until Jerry Brown wrote the 2008 guidelines.
Right.
And then what it meant is that if you were Clean Green certified, you were compliant with the guidelines. So that really, 2008 was really, you could have called it the Chris Van Hook Full Employment Act, because that's really when, and Steve D'Angelo was, our first client. And so, yeah. And so, when Harborside got involved in it, it was, it really stepped it up quite a bit. They started offering, more money per pound and whatnot. So that really was a big supportive thing they got. But now we're in 10 states, Canada and Puerto Rico. And we certified a little over 350,000 pounds of just trimmed flour last year. So that means,
wow.
Yeah, that means all the weight,
awesome.
all the plant weight that went to processing was extra. So, but it's a lot more than just checking the soil. We approach a farm or a processor just as if they were applying to the USDA organic program. So, in addition to the organic program, there's a carbon footprint reduction program. There's a lot to it besides, but the soil sample is, you have to pass that, and one thing that's about, because you guys know, but maybe some of your viewers don't, that I also work in the USDA organic program.
Right.
So
right.
I've been involved in that since it started in 2004 as well. And so I was one of the 84 companies around the world that was accredited by the USDA to go issue that logo. And then when I sold my half of that company about 5 or 6 years ago, I sort of jumped up and became an attorney for organic farmers that are having, problems with their federal paperwork, that kind of stuff. And then I also now, there still are only about 85 companies around the world that are accredited to issue that certification. And of those, there's probably only 35 or 40 people that are qualified to audit these companies. And I'm one of those now. So
wow.
It's
and you used to do fish, didn't you? Do seafood?
Abalone.
Like
it was abalone up in the Crescent City.
Yep. I was for 30 years, I was a marine biologist. I was the longest running abalone farmer in the Western Hemisphere, before the government started putting me out of business, which is what got me into law school in my 40s, mid 40s. So, I mean, if you want to talk about, coming off the water of 30 years and sitting in a jail cell and reading for 10 to 12 hours a day, it was, but anyway, I had to do that to protect my own farm. And I like to tell people there's a very, very thin line between sleep and evidence law. You could literally sleep 8 hours, go into the office, and within an hour of evidence law, you were back asleep again. So anyway,
wow.
But anyway, so that's, I became an attorney. I had to, get in a big lawsuit with the Harbor District. We won, but I didn't want to be an attorney. I mean, I could get that mad about my farm. I just can't get that mad about somebody else's farm. So it fit me much better to, right when the California regulations were coming out, to just sort of move into that compliance law. And it was really fun because, years ago, people would wonder, how the hell did you get through this locked gate? And who the hell are you? And I'd be like, well, I don't know, but your boss must have told me to be here. And the only reason why I was ever even given those gate combinations is because, I was an attorney. So I could be, take my attorney-client privilege up into the mountains. And so that was, that's what started out, the whole program. It was, and ever since then, it's grown to where, we've got, there's no other program in the world whose members have won the number of cups and awards that the Clean Green program has. And it's just, it's just been really fun. When we first started, a lot of the industry said, oh, you can't grow good cannabis organically. You need to buy very expensive liquid fertilizers from Europe. And we've proven that over the years, we've proven that not only can you grow good cannabis organically, but of course you can grow the world's finest cannabis organically. So
Yeah,
it's been,
right.
yeah, so this is our 18th year actually. And yeah, and so we feel like we've helped, we feel good about our time with the program. We feel like
well, you've been very helpful for us with realizing how to, be more and more organic all the time. And I hadn't really realized the connection with Steve and Harborside, because when we were selling to them, we've been selling to them since 07. And when we got our certification fume, all of a sudden they gave us $100 more a pound.
Yeah,
and
right.
so that pretty much covered the cost of your certification and then some. And
yeah.
so,
Yeah, no.
it's been and see, the other thing, you also certify distributors and retailers too, in terms of their conditions inside, right? It's not just the soil stuff.
Oh, no. Yeah. Again, just like the organic program, but it was really fun with Steve because when I had my first meeting with him, I'm like, you can't sell this as organic. He's like, I'll have the lawyers deal with it. And I said, no, you don't understand. By calling it organic, you're almost mandating that the feds come in here, not because you're selling weed, but because you have a labeling infraction. Right. And all of a sudden it went bingo, and he goes, okay, get it all off. So that was really hugely helpful in it. But yeah, just like the organic program, we certify processors and handlers. We've got the 2 largest edible and processed food makers in Washington. We've got everything you can imagine, shatters and oils and pre-rolls and dried keef and just candies, gummy bears. We actually even certified a suppository, and you think about it, but people are having last stages of cancer, and this was real helpful for them. So we do whatever, and then we also certify outlets. When we started, just the simple fact, people would be trimming, harvesting their cannabis and then going out into the woods and taking a leak and coming back. I'm like, no, you need a hand washing station somewhere in here. So even just putting a water jug with a bar of soap on a tree stump was revolutionary. It's like, oh my God, this is so modern, but now, as it's changed, everybody's has a hand wash station or a bathroom now. And so a lot of the emphasis of the programs changed to where we try to keep current all the time. So now, our members need more help getting their product into market. I like to think that we're helping, small and mid-sized farms get into that larger market that's more and more dominated by huge investment groups. So, I am happy to say that, that 350,000 pounds gets sold every year. And if you want to put your name on some, you better buy it while it's still in the ground, because it'll be gone. So, I don't try to concern myself with everybody else. I can only concern myself with our farmers and our processors and helping them get their product into the market. So, yeah.
Well, let's get back to basics, Chris. What is the definition of organic, regardless of who owns the term? What does it mean to be organic in terms of USDA and so on?
Okay, yeah. From an agricultural standpoint, what it means to be organic is that your fertilizers and your pest controls are naturally based. So instead of using a synthetic fertilizer, you're using natural-based fertilizers, compost, green mulches, worm castings, bone meals, blood meal, and all of that. You're building a much more complex soil. And then your pest control, gosh, when we started, Eagle 20 and myclobutanol was huge. Yeah, it was huge. And so your pest control needs to be naturally based. So our farm, the people that we're calling were, instead of just spraying a lot of fungicide, they'd be pruning their trees so that air would pass through. Instead of just spraying for mites, they'd be putting out, predator mites and biological controls. And then using sprays like neem oil and safer soap. So really, it boils down to the fertilizers and the soil conditioners you're using and the pest control. But then there's others, like you cannot be causing erosion. You need to be reducing your carbon footprint every year. And then you have to pass a soil sample test. So it really encompasses quite a bit besides just the soil sample test.
So you send your soil off to a lab that normally tests for regular agriculture too, like for USDA, right? It's not a specialized lab. It's the one that you can use.
Right. No, that's a really good point, Swami. Thank you. Yeah. Because I work in both the USDA organic and I've been in agriculture my whole life. When the cannabis labs were starting, there just was no real standards or regulations. And so a couple times, so I was not able to deny a certificate because you failed an unlicensed lab report. So what I decided to do is to use soil samples, collected under the drip line of the plant, and send them in for pesticide screening to the federally registered agricultural lab that we used for the organic program. So if you fail that test and then we retake it, because there's always a possibility of a false positive, and you fail that, then we really can deny your certificate. And then we really can take that lab report into a court, if in the organic realm, for example. So yeah, we've always used the same lab that we use with our organic program, just to avoid the varying standards of the labs. Now the cannabis labs are definitely improving now, so that's changed a bit.
They're different kind of labs. The cannabis labs are basically testing the product. You're testing the soil that produces the product. So it's a kind of different, it's a first step rather than a final step.
Well, there's, the cannabis labs are checking for THC and, CBD and that kind of stuff, but they also have a pesticide component. And that's really, from a food safety standard, that's really what we're interested in. And so if a person sprays their plant with a insecticide, obviously it'll drop onto the ground, and then you can, and then you can scoop it up and send it in and find it. But because they were federally licensed, they were not able to handle the actual plant material. Yeah.
Interesting. And Chris, I have a question. Is it when the federal government does eventually, and I trust this will happen, make it legal, are we going to then be able to use the word organic?
Oh, well, absolutely. You'll have to get certified organic under the USDA organic program. And that's where the Clean Green program's a great first step for moving into that. And it also builds your history, because with the organic program, you've got to prove that you have not been using pesticides for 3 years. And so, so with our Clean Green farmers have got these soil samples from the same lab, and you guys have got 10 of them now. So you'll be able to walk right into that organic program when it becomes available. And so even then, though, the USDA organic program won't be helping with marketing or helping with, so we're real confident that there will still be a place for the Clean Green program, even if that moves in. For example, they probably will not be allowing artificial lights. And so we've got some farms that do that still. And as the USDA organic program gets more and more burdensome, I mean, you can raise organic cows in China, which are never inspected by the feds, make it into milk powder in China, ship it to the United States, make it into yogurt, and then we, the consumer, read that the yogurt's produced in the US. So there's all kinds of problems with, the USDA organic program has just become so burdensome that I think we'll always have a space to operate in. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever grown your own weed, Chris?
Oh shit! Since I was a kid. What are you talking about? It was yeah. People don't realize it, but I walked out in New Jersey State Penitentiary a few weeks before I turned 18. You know, so a lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't. What's that? For weed, yeah, for racing weed. Motorcycles and weed, yeah. I got a. Yeah, I've grown weed since I was a kid. You know. I mean, you know, I remember we used to. You get a whole shopping bag full of leaf, and you dry out enough in a toaster oven to roll a joint. You know, I mean, I don't know. We all remember that. Yeah.
So we always ask our guests, how old were you when you
What's that?
Yeah. How old were you when you smoked? How old were you when you first smoked, and who turned you on?
Oh, probably about 15. And I don't know, some of our friends had some somewhere, and you know, I don't know. And then you know, back then you'd say, wow, this is really good weed. Look at all the seeds in it, you know. So we would take you know, we would take our, you know, our double-sided LP, you know, record album, and you know, with the zigzag paper thing, and clean out all the seeds and plant them, you know. So yeah, I don't, you know, so that's it was funny. I was talking in front of a group of students the other day about cannabis, and I asked them, do any of you even know how to cup a joint? And they're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. So so it's been fun, you know. Like I tell people, I never would have imagined that I could grow abalone if I wasn't getting high. And I know damn well I couldn't have worked those 16-hour days on the water if I wasn't. So, you know, I got the right flank here. You know, nobody's gonna outflank us from the right on this side here. You know, I have no apologies whatsoever. You know, yeah.
So I have another question. You told us a long time ago that you've been a member of the Farm Bureau, and that's a kind of a conservative organization. And so, where does the Farm Bureau now stand in relation to cannabis?
You know, they've just screwed that up entirely. You know, they still have it in their mind that, you know, yeah, I've been a member of the Farm Bureau or worked on Farm Bureau farms since I was 18. And, you know, I told them years ago that they needed to get on the bandwagon on this, you know, and cannabis farmers need to join, so that, you know, if all of a sudden 300 cannabis farmers join, they couldn't deny it. But they kept saying, nah. Well, what's happened is in California, they've been able to implement such stringent regulations on cannabis, just killing you. So if you're a, you know, a fat-bellied redneck in, you know, growing broccoli or beans, hell, you don't care, a bunch of hippies, so what? Well, now all those agencies are turning on the standard agriculture, saying, well, if they can do it, you should have to do it. And so it was a bad, so, you know, I was actually, yeah, like I say, I've been a member of that now for over 40 years. And I gotta, if I get a free minute, I gotta call them back up and because they should be involved in this, you know, and the cannabis farmers should be involved in this.
Yeah. We were members here down in Mendo for a little while, but then it didn't seem like we had anybody else with us. And then,
yeah, no,
but what amazed me at the time, they put out like a weekly or monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to me that they had the same exact issues that we had, right?
I know.
Government regulation and water usage and what kind of pesticides and farm loans and all these things. And, you know, first of all, emphasize to me what we do as cannabis growers is just farming, right? And we have all the same issues, right? How do we get it to market and so on? And so, but why are these people just so against us? Because I think what you just pointed out, that's called regulation migration. So everything they put onto us, they're going to try and put onto, and they're going to start with the dairy industry because they're one of the greatest polluters with the effluent from the cattle and all of that sort of stuff and what they do on the landscape. So they should have been fighting with us to make it a little less onerous, but they decided not to.
Yeah, I know. I was actually, you know, I've always been a member of the Farm Bureau just because that's the one government agency that, you know, sort of represented us in some way. But there's a lot of stuff I don't agree with them. But anyway, I still think it would have been good to to swarm
But
them.
they're not an agency. They're a private organization, right? They're not a government agency.
No, they're not a
And-
government. They're an industry group. Yeah, they're an industry group, but they hold a lot of sway in California. And
Oh, yeah.
anyway, so I was thinking if I had a free minute, I should stir that pot again, and say they need to be leading it because it's going to
Right.
be that regulatory migration. That's exactly what it is. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, if you want some help, call me up and I'll be glad to talk to them also. I've learned how to talk to some of these agents. There's actually a woman here who's the executive director locally. And actually, she's kind of in our court a little bit. I forget her name, but she's, I see her at Board of Supervisors meetings. And, she's always kind of, I think she kind of understands, but she's not at the top level. So.
Yeah. No, well, that's, it'd be nice to talk to her actually too, just to get one county agent in. So it's just something that sort of been buried for the past couple of years, but yeah. It's been.
Chris, I have a question. What's it like when you, I mean, we've never experienced this, I'm happy to say, but what's it like when you go to a farm and you actually find that they're not organic? Does that happen very often? When somebody calls you out and they blow it?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, you don't exactly bring up all the bad points while you're there. All right. Oh God, that's been funny. It used to be a little bit different. Now it's, okay. I went to one farm and all their inputs were laid out on the shop table very nicely. That's good. Everything good. And then I walked out to the field and there's a big pile of tarp. And I asked the kid out there, I said, what are these? He goes, oh, those are the fertilizers we use. I look under there and, oh man, chemical fertilizers. Or the guy sitting on his couch with his two Rottweilers, smoking cigarettes, trimming weed, watching TV. I'm like, so I didn't. What I normally do is I just sort of say, okay, well, I'll get back to the office and take a look at this, and we'll see. Well, I could just get we start working our way out of there. And right about then, you start thinking, God dang it, do I turn left or right down at that intersection where the tree's not there anymore because they cut it out? You start working your way out. And then one time I walked into a nursery. It was fun because people would say, they would mumble over the phone. And I'd be like, yeah, no worries. We'll talk about it when we get there. Like, okay. And then I got there and this nursery, I'm not kidding. This nursery must have had 70, 80,000 plants, a massive nursery. And I said, where are all these plants going? They go, oh, we plant the hills and we got farmers out in the hills and we got farmers out in the hills and all illegal. And I was like, man, I can't certify this. And then he's like, well, then what the hell are you doing here? I'm like, well, I don't know either. I think I'm just going to walk my way out of here. And so it's like, and then another group called and they said, hey, we have 5 farms up here that want to get certified. I said, oh, great. And it was a well-known area. And but we don't want you coming up to the farm. I'm like, you don't want me coming up? No, just give us your routing number. We'll put the money in your account and just send us the certificate.
No.
And I'm like, I said, that sounds great to me, but I couldn't get it past my staff. I said, no problem. But anyway, so we've had all kinds of stories like that nowadays, you get into an investment group and a big farm, and if they're not qualified, then it's not as goosey as it used to be.
Right, exactly. Out at the edge of a 20-mile dirt road, exactly.
Yeah, right.
in my Sprinter van,
Exactly. Yeah. So,
no, it's been fun. It's been fun. Gosh, I've gotten to some beautiful farms, beautiful locations. It's been fun, I have to say.
Yeah.
One thing that I really miss is before the regulations came in 2018, well, heck, you guys remember, when you're doing inspections around harvest time, you're out in the barn and you're smelling the plants and you're feeling the buds, and you're rolling up a little doobie to taste it, and you're really analyzing as if it's, green beans or dried herbs. And then now, since 2018, that's no longer allowed. We're on video and we're going to have to run it through inventory, and you just can't do that like we used to. I used to really enjoy it. I mean, obviously we walk through a lot of drying rooms, massive, 1,500 pounds drying at one time or something.
Wow.
But you can't really, pinch it, smell it, roll a little bit, taste it. Oh, let me take this bud for later and try it. You can't. That's
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
It's
Well,
important.
no, yeah. In so many ways, the fun is gone, actually.
Yes.
And is that culture that we had, that everybody kind of, nobody said anything, but everybody kind of knew who was doing it, and so on. It was kind of magic in a certain way, the underground culture, but it did have its bad parts too, for sure.
And when would you say is the best time in the growing season to do the testing, Chris? What would you like?
Well, the testing, ideally, we like to get to a farm from like early bud set on. So by the time they're early bud set, if they're spraying something during the veg stage, these labs will catch it. So,
right.
So we don't like to get there too early, and we like to get to a farm pretty much from early bud set on. So that's when we can test them. And we find a lot of things that even from last year, these labs are so good at finding these chemicals that sometimes people say, gosh, as a matter of fact, we had one farm that passed, and then the following year they failed. And what had happened, they said, gosh, we bought our soil from the same place. So when we did the research, we always do an investigation on that. It was a soil company in Colorado that had been mining the topsoil of this 10 acres, let's say. And then they bought the adjacent 10 acres and started mining that topsoil, and never told anybody, but that 10 acres had been sprayed. So here, a farm in California had been contaminated by a soil company that had purchased new land in Colorado. So
why are they taking their soil from Colorado if they're in California? That doesn't seem particularly.
Well, you look at all these soil companies. They have branches all over the place. This is years ago, and all these bagged soils that you buy, and they can come from somewhere. Yeah. So anyway, that was an interesting story. So yeah.
So what's so bad about those chemical fertilizers in bottles that you just pour on and jump back and so on? What's so bad about those things?
Oh, well, nothing's inherently bad about synthetic fertilizers, except for the carbon footprint of transporting 90-95% liquid from Europe. It was expensive, and also a lot of those liquid fertilizers, they'd have spaceships and crystals on their labels, but they were in 90% water. So the other thing is that is you can only do that when you've got a very expensive commodity. When you're selling a pound for $3,200, you can't buy those fertilizers and inputs when you're selling your product for $800 a pound, as opposed to 32. So that changed it quite a bit. But then that's sort of from a footprint economic standpoint, but from a soil ecology standpoint, those salt-based soils just kill off the microflora in the soil. So you'll get, a quick growing plant, but you won't get the complexity in the bouquet, in the taste, in the crystalline structure that you'll get if you're growing it in a complex living soil. So long-term synthetic fertilizer use sterilizes the soil, and the footprint of transporting a liquid-based fertilizer halfway around the world is not conducive to sustainability.
So I know you're not a soil scientist specifically, but what do you mean when you say salt-based fertilizers? I've learned about that a few years ago and I said, oh, that makes sense. But it's not sodium chloride like
No.
table salt they're putting. What does it mean when you say a salt-based?
Well, okay, from an inorganic chemical perspective, from inorganic chemistry, all of those elements are salts. So they're all salt-based. It's a chemistry term. So like boron or magnesium are all salts. It's not NaCl salt. It's so you might call them synthetic chemical based, but they're salts in the periodic table. Table. So yeah, that's sort of where that term comes from. But
and they disrupt the balance. They disrupt the balance of the living soil by taking the place of some of the elements, and they end up killing the bacteria and the fungi after their use.
Yep, because they change the pH, they change the acidity, they change a lot of the structures of the soil, and they literally just, sort of kill off all that microflora. And the reason, it's the same with organic. I remember that, organic basil versus conventional basil. Well, conventional basil grown in the flat, deep soils of the Central Valley grows very big and grows very pretty, but there's no taste. It's watery. The leaves are big, but there's no taste. You're producing a lot per acre. And then, my favorite basil farm was on a steep, hard scrabble hillside where the plants really had to fight for their nutrients. And that basil had a lot of taste. The plants weren't as big, but it was much better basil. And the same is with cannabis, is that, when you have a deep soiled, heavily irrigated, synthetic fertilized cannabis plant, you'll get a big plant, big stalks, moving a lot of water up, big leaves, but you're just not going to get the taste or complexity that you will and you don't take my word for it, you take for the number of cups and awards that our farms have. Not one of those awards have been won on synthetic fertilizer, and it was funny.
Right.
Well, just for your viewers, our first member award was in 2010 when the High Times Cup moved from Amsterdam to San Francisco. And it was really fun because they asked me to come down for it. And, their entourages of seed producers and bigwigs from Europe and, the highway patrols directing traffic. And it was my kid's math and physics teacher from Crescent City that goes, this is pretty good. Drove down and won on all counts with his Subcools Vortex and for sativa. And so a Clean Green certified grower has won the San Francisco High Times Cup. That's only one, and the Emerald Cup. But in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, 17 and 18, they didn't. And then 19 and 20 again, and 19 in 4 different categories. So it was really interesting when we, we'd been in and out of High Times magazines a lot, and we were just actually in it again for the June edition, this past June. And it was interesting because after we won 4 or 5 times, or our members have won 4 or 5 times, I called them back up and I said, we ought to do an article on the Clean Green growers and how it is that they grow such award-winning cannabis. And it was Dave Birkenstock, you might remember him. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I don't know, Chris, I'll have to talk to the board about this. I'm like, that's weird. Why would that's weird. And he gets back to me, he goes, yeah, we talked about it on the board and we're not going to do an article. Why aren't we going to do an article? Because all the growers would say worm castings and compost teas and not the stuff that High Times magazine was selling. So they turned it, even though our members had won at that point like 4 or 5 years in a row, like, no, we're not going to do an article. So anyway, it's interesting. Yeah, because
so this year in the Emerald Cup for the first time, there was the category of flowers of certified flowers. You're probably aware of
Third
that.
party
Third party
certified.
certified flowers. And
Oh,
there were
okay.
very few entrants, I have to admit. So, I
Uh-huh.
mean, if anyone entered, they were bound to get something because there was such little
Oh,
competition.
so that must have been
But-
started by EnviroCan because they're working with,
Oh, maybe.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
probably sounds like an inside deal.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Huh.
yeah, I don't know. It was funny. One of our farmers won the Jamaican World Cup, you know? So, I mean, I'm not
That's
going to ask too
fantastic.
much. I don't ask too much about that, you know? But
So Chris, you said something about the basil now, how the basil grown one way doesn't have much taste and is hard scrabble. So that leads me right back to the question about appellation and terroir. And how does Clean Green maybe fit into that? Or what is your thoughts about appellation for cannabis?
well, absolutely. I think that your area is probably one of the prime potential areas for it. There's some other wonderful areas for growing. Southern Oregon has got some, beautiful areas for growing. Nevada
Yeah.
County's got some beautiful areas. Somebody is over from Nevada County. But I would think, so yeah, I think that as the market develops, that's going to happen more.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think what we're thinking about is something that would cover every legacy growing area, certainly including parts of Washington. But, the baseline is that it's got to be grown in the ground and
Right.
without artificial light after it starts to flower. I just assume it didn't have any artificial light at all, but politics meant that people had to. So, but then here in the state, of course, I've talked about it before on our sessions that California mandated that the Department of Food and Agriculture come up with regulations for appellations, and they're just about to give their final rules out, and so there'll be people actually starting to petition for their appellations here in the state. But we always envision it as something for the whole United States and actually for the world, that at some point there would be an appellation for, Moroccan hash or Afghani or whatever it happens to be, that they actually can take the principles that we're setting up now and can be applied to any area that's growing organically and naturally in the soil, and to say, hey, there's something different about Nepali hash from Afghani and so on.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned Washington too. There's some great growing areas in Washington. But yeah, I think that's going to be something that the industry will mature into. But I think Mendocino and Southern Humboldt is uniquely qualified to be one of the first ones, I would think. And
yeah. Well, we kind of started the movement, actually. It was Janine Coleman, myself, and Justin Calvino who really started to push the appellation thing, and that was back in 2015. But I'd actually been talking because I have wine growers in my ancestry way back in Holland and places like that. And for a while, before I couldn't drink anymore, I used to really be I have to say a wine snob.
Okay.
So now I've turned into a cannabis snob now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know.
The Emerald Cup and so on. So, but I think, we'll eventually probably have a category at the Emerald Cup, which will be an appellation category as well, because at the Cup, and you've talked at the Cup many times, we used to meet you there and so on. But the Cup had started out with just judging the flowers, and then we added hashish to it, and now there's 28 categories with all edibles and so on and so forth. Yeah. The same stuff you're certifying on the other end as well.
Actually, I just want to read something that came in the chat too, is that Daniel, who we met from Down Home Farms, he's with Ed Ocho, we just saw him earlier, so you won the personal division of the personal flowers in the Cup this year, is that right? Am I getting that right, Ed?
Yeah, Daniel did. He just went around and tipped to the house because he lost off his phone, but you guys did award him at the Emerald Cup. I believe the last one in
Okay.
person.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that name that sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Right. That's excellent. That's really great.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's really great. I love that there's
anyone-
still the personal. And you know, between you and me, we judge all of the commercial cannabis and all the different categories they have now. The personal still remains some of my favorite because
Yeah.
people can just be more creative with it. They're not thinking about what's the general public gonna like, you know, what's the hot strain this year. They're just doing what comes from their heart. And a lot of time those personal grows really carry something extra special in them. I agree.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I did notice that there are quite a few categories. The Emerald Cup's just gotten so big now. Yes, I did notice that there are quite a few categories in there. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah.
Well, even indoor. So what about, how can indoor be organic? How hard is that? How easy is it?
Okay, well, again, that's changed quite a bit. You know, when we started, 18 years ago, outdoor had a very poor reputation for quality because a lot of it was being grown in the shade, and indoor was perceived as being better. And over the past 18 years, now that the outdoor can move into the sun, the quality's gotten quite higher, much higher. And the indoor carbon footprint has come down quite a bit than it was 18 years ago, just amazingly low. And so we've got, now it probably will never be able to be organic under the USDA organic logo, but as far as the Clean Green program, how they can be organic is if they're using organic fertilizers, soil-based organic fertilizers, and organic pest control. And we've got some farms now, because when the state borders are opened, a lot of these farms are no longer going to exist because, for example, like in Nevada, you can't grow outdoors in Nevada because of the heat and the wind, the conditions. So they're growing indoors. But this one farm that I've got is using all LED, complex LED lights, no-till beds. They've been growing, this is their 24th crop now, the beds. They put cover crops out. They, they're growing almost all their own inputs. So their carbon footprint is very, very low. They might actually be actually eligible for our regenerative label, which we've developed this year, vegan and regenerative. Okay. And so, this is a conversation I've had for a long time, is that sometimes an outdoor operation can have huge environmental consequences, and an indoor operation can have far less. For example, if you're in the older days, if you're growing 45 minutes up an unpaved road and hauling all your fertilizers up and going downtown every day for a latte coffee and driving back in the septic tanks unpermitted, and you're losing 35%, 40% to rain because you can't process it properly. And then, back then taking 2 or 3 pounds down to LA at a time. Well, that carbon footprint from seed to consumer was very high compared to a single mom. I always use these two examples. A single mom in Santa Cruz, whose kids would go to school. She'd go back to her detached garage, little 6-light unit. She was 5 minutes from her fertilizer store, 5 minutes from her, her dispensary. And so her carbon footprint was actually very low. So it's a mixed bag, but regardless, I think as the state borders are erased and it can be produced in California or Oregon outdoors or in greenhouses, the indoor is being phased out, not necessarily because of energy, but just simply because of economics. And so when the state, when Michigan, Michigan is almost virtually guaranteed to be indoor operations. But when they can start start buying cannabis that's grown in an outdoor location, like California, for example, those indoor operations will just be priced out. So it happened. When we started, we probably had 60% indoor, 40% outdoor, let's say. And 18 years later, we have probably 10% indoor.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
very little. We have probably 60% hoop house or greenhouse, and then what, the other 30 or 40% just in outdoor itself.
Wow.
So the
Wow. Well, it's going to take some education to kind of train these people around the country that have been only smoking indoor, because they have a certain look. They want that bling that they get with the indoor. They want that high THC. And this is what we're trying to do, is educate people that it's not about all that. It's
Right.
really not. And the high THC means you're missing out on all those other amazing available cannabinoids that can be in there.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just me or not, but they look good in the High Times pictures or something, but I always seem to appreciate the taste and the high from a good full season outdoor crop more.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think you get a better bouquet, you're getting a fuller flavor, and I think you're getting a better high. A lot of that beautiful crystally indoor stuff, you smoke it, but I'm not as impressed with the taste, or the high seems to come and go more quickly. I don't know, but
see, to me, that's also because the terroir is what's creating the terpenes, right? Whatever is in the environment that poses a threat to the plant then produces the appropriate terpene and other things to combat that. And so that's why the plant really becomes an expression. And also, I feel, of course, there's important THC, CBD, and all the other 100 cannabinoids there. But I think that the terpenes, they're the ones that fine tune your high.
Right.
That take it, whether it's relaxed or high, whatever. It's the detail of the high that's coming from the terpenes. And that's where I think the consumer market will eventually get to. And that's why they'll also start to appreciate sun-grown, as we like to call it. And the fact is that, it's going to, as you say, it's going to price out the indoor market, because it just doesn't have that ultimate quality. And indoor costs more money in many ways, because it actually costs a lot more to produce it.
Right.
You got to pay for light, and even more than the light, you got to pay for what they call HVAC, right? The heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, which is so important. And also water purification and air purification coming in and going out. So there's a whole lot of mechanical stuff for indoor, which makes it cost more, that those things and outdoor doesn't have to pay for.
Right. Well, that's true. Except for, again, not many farms are full LED, and and I'm still not convinced that the flower is the best coming out of it. But with LED lights, you don't have any HVAC anymore. There's no heat buildup. There's no heat buildup. Yes. So that's gone. And this one indoor operation that I'm talking about gets 80% of their irrigation water from the dehumidifiers in their grow rooms. He said, we use more water washing the floor than we do irrigating our crop. So, I mean,
it's possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like I say, he's growing in big 2,000-pound tote bags, the big tote bags. And he literally has been growing in the same soil for 7 years. He cover crops in it. But this is a real unique farm. Top award winner. And so his costs are substantially less than the old style with the HVAC and but I think what's going to happen, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying that's really interesting. Yeah. And actually, I wanted to address another question we have that comes from George up in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, George, first of all, whether you're talking about doing homegrown indoor or outdoor, because he asked the question about what's the cheapest and probably best kind of starter set of products to use to grow organic cannabis at home, because it's just legal there as of today. So I guess he's anxious to get going. So George, can you tell us, are you talking about indoor or sun grown? What can you do there? You're on mute there.
Yeah, I just took it off mute. Right now, because technically we're not supposed to be growing till October, so it's going to be indoor for the next couple of months. I honestly don't see them enforcing that, but God forbid they did. I just would rather be indoor for now. But then come next season, definitely going to be doing outdoor. My wife and I have some big plans already for that.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Well, is the question, what's the easiest way to start organic farming?
Yeah, just to start it out, just because it'll be my first time doing this, so I want to get in doing it right from the very beginning.
I'll tell you that I'll tell you the same thing I tell everybody that asks me that question. A good friend of mine who won actually the 2010 High Times Cup, my kid's math and physics teacher, in Crescent City, developed a fertilizer, and it's called Green Bicycles, but he spelled it Grean. So it's like Gren Bicycles. So if you go Google, Gren Bicycles fertilizer, you'll find his website, and he's got one complete fertilizer, and you'll just mix it with a purchased potting soil like Ocean Bounty or something. And then he's also got a compatible compost tea. And so and he actually sells it on Amazon in small little batches.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Now,
Yeah.
But you can always contact them with questions. But it worked out sort of interesting where, after he won his award, he was buying ingredients and mixing them, bone meal, blood meal, alfalfa seed, all this. And most companies run them through a pulver, they pulverize it so that it releases quickly to the plant. Well, he didn't know so he just was putting the ingredients in. But what happens by doing that, it almost became a slow release. So you can actually mix it with your Ocean Bounty or your purchased potting soil, and you really don't have to touch it again. You don't have to fertilize it again until you harvest. But he did develop.
That's great.
It really is. I mean, I've seen award-winning cannabis come out of this just using those few things. And then that's the easiest way for somebody to just go buy that and a soil. And I do like his compost tea also at the end. I personally have seen like up to 30% more root growth with the compost tea that he has. So again, I'm not part of it. I don't get any of it, but I've just seen it work very well, and it's very helpful for somebody new.
Yeah, that's great. At least that points me in the right direction. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys taking my question. I really do.
Yeah, good. And then of course you want to also your biological controls. You want to probably work with an insectary.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say about the compost teas that sometimes when you haven't ever done it before, it can be a little kind of, putting off and so on. You can actually get a 5-gallon bucket and get a little bubbler from an aquarium that you have for your fish, whatever size. And, then you apportion the tea according to that 5-gallon volume and just bubble it for 24 hours, 36 hours and put it on your plant. So it's not a really big deal. You can jump into compost teas pretty quick.
Yeah.
And there are, ones that are more designed for the vegetative phase of the growth cycle, and then you switch a slightly different tea composition when they start to what Chris referred to, the bud set.
There's another really good source also. If you go on our website, the Clean Green Certified website, cleangreencertified.com. You look under licensed products, because we have a licensing program for fertilizers too. We've got some excellent fertilizers in there. Excellent, BioBiz is one of them. So we've got an awful lot of really top line fertilizers there now. We've got Cold War Organics. So anyway, you could go to our website and really find top quality organic fertilizers that are happy to help you. And especially if you tell them that you're working with the Clean Green program and you found their fertilizer on that website and you have questions about it. So those are two ways. The Green Bicycles is easy, but boy, we've got some beautiful fertilizers on that website now. Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you mix that fertilizer with your potting soil, you don't want to start doing your compost soon, because someone else mute. Got some extra sound to it. Somebody, people
Rick,
need to mute.
Rick, can you mute
Rick,
it?
can
Yeah.
you mute and?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Thanks. Don't worry.
Let's see, what do I do here? I'm trying to, hang on.
at the bottom usually. Bottom left. There you go. Thank you.
There you go,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah. So we had one of our Sesh guys, Wilbur from up in Maine. He got some potting soil and he started his plants, and then, oh God, I'm going to put this compost tea on them. And he put the tea on them. They just went, they just wilted down because they got overamped with stuff. So if you're mixing a potting soil, which already has some ingredients usually, and some of this fertilizer that Chris is talking about, make sure you really measure out the proportions and don't put on your compost tea too soon, because you'll freak out the plants. And that's what you could ask for advice from Chris's website too on when and how to do that as well.
Right. Yeah, that's actually true, because so many of these prepared soils and fertilizers are so nutrient rich that you're right. You can over fertilize and knock the plant down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And less is more in some of these cases as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah. That's an interesting point. It's years ago when the price was so high, people were over fertilizing like crazy. And so now as the price comes down into more standard ag, they've had to pay a closer attention to not over fertilize, just give it the right amount. You're right, that's a new issue. Yeah.
And another thing you can start also is you can start a little worm bin just with your kitchen vegetable scraps from your kitchen. And if you have any leaves or grass that you cut around, so you can start a little worm bin, and you buy the worms, you go online and they'll send you some worms. And make sure you pick them up from the post office, because if they stay in the post office for a week, they'll die and they'll start to stink.
Yeah. No, I before I got hurt, that's where I was working, was for the post office, so I can attest to that. They will sit there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I actually just did that, picked them up today, put them in my compost pile. They're happy as can be, and they're gone. I did it right on, you can buy them right online.
Yeah,
That's
you can
great.
do that, right. And other things like ladybugs too, you can buy. So Chris keeps talking about the pest management, and it's called integrated pest management. And he gave a wonderful workshop for a whole bunch of us farmers down in Mendo and we helped us get our certification from the state on pest management. But the first principle is you have companion planting that actually takes either the bugs come to them or they drive them all away. And so you can look that up. And then you also have predators, bugs who eat the bugs. Like the bugs who are bad bugs, then you get the bugs that eat them. And so there's an awful lot of information online too. If you can identify what's troubling you, then you can just go online and find an answer. But the pest management is really an important part of the organic certification.
Yeah, it's interesting, Swami, that you said that, because beneficial insects, if you're an indoor operation, many of them purchase insects to control the pests in their indoor operation. If you're an outdoor operation, a lot of those predator mites now come in sort of like a tea bag, where you hang a tea bag on each plant, and it's a slow release. But the best thing that you can do, the best thing that you can do, is just to increase the diversity of the plantings around your garden. And so we really never see any pest outbreaks that are detrimental to the crop in an outdoor area where they've got a biologically complex border areas, like your farm, for example. It just seems like when you're indoors, you have or a greenhouse, you have a much greater potential for having a pest outbreak, and you have to buy that particular predator mite. But if you're outdoors, you can control it so much just simply by having a lot of diversity in the plants, and then your beneficial.
That comes with the cover cropping too, when you cover crop in the off season. And then also when you do companion planting. And likewise, you can just look up there. There's whole lists of what companion plants are beneficial for cannabis. I mean, one year we had some dill out in the garden, and I kind of was one of those volunteers, and I look at the dill and it's just covered with aphids, and then it's covered with ladybugs, right? But the cannabis plant right next to it had none of it. Right. Yeah. So that's one of the principles of the companion plant. You give the bug the plant it wants, so it doesn't come onto your plant. Right. Yeah. And there's other things, nicotinia and other things, like we had potatoes out there, and those cucumber beetles, they went for the potato leaves and they didn't go for the pot leaves. Right. Right on. And so you know, there's all these ways. And the other thing is, ask your local farmers too, because they've got the same problems as you got, even if they're not growing cannabis, right? And so you find out, go to your local nursery or something like that whenever you have a problem, because people love plants, they love to grow, and they just want to help you. That's what's so amazing about it. They just want to, help you.
Me. Well, it has been fun. It's been a real fun 18 years so far. It's been quite a it's so funny that you guys, I don't know, you've known me since what, 2010 or something, and you just now asked, Chris, do you grow weed? It's so funny. It's so funny. I get a kick out of that because so many people think, when I was just one fun story, when years ago, God, I don't know how many times I'd be behind locked gates, 2 or 3 locked gates on a farm, and they were a little suspicious about who the hell's this guy? Why is he here anyway? And I don't know how many times I'd get jacked up. You look like you're the DEA. You look like you're the DEA, And I had to think real quick like a ninja, And I said, really? You think I woke up this morning, shaved, put on a clean shirt, and said, let's go infiltrate? Am I blending in here? And then, don't you think I would have shown up? Well, something looking like you, and they were usually, bearded and tattooed and stuff. And they're like, well, I guess you're right. I mean, am I blending in here? No. And then I would tell them, I'd say, if I'm the first person like me that you've seen up here, let me just tell you, as we move to legalization, there's going to be a whole bunch more that are going to be coming. So let's all sit down. Let's sit down. Let's do the paperwork like your boss said, and everything will be fine. All right, well, take a hit of this before you go. All right, I'll take a hit. Now we've all broken federal law. Now can we do the paperwork? Okay. So that was a lot of fun stories with it over the years. Yeah.
Anyway. And Chris, how do people find you? I mean, how do people hear about Clean Green Certified and all that? Is it usually word of mouth?
Well, we have a pretty good, we have a new marketing director, who I think you've met, Angela. Yep. She's got a long experience with SEO and website development. And so we heard, it's been 18 years and we've won so many cups and awards, and we use, we've had a website presence, but mostly, I guess articles. We just did an interview with Cheddar. Does anybody here know who Cheddar is? You do? Okay, Jack does. Okay, well, Cheddar is a YouTube news program from New York City. They got 270,000 hits, on that interview. Yeah, we've been in Oprah magazine. We've been in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles. We were just in the largest newspaper in Puerto Rico on the front page. We were just we just did a podcast with a young in his 40s musician who just won the Latin Grammy Award.
Wow!
And, yes, and one of the farms down there, hired him to interview the old guy, and so it's sort of been growing that way, I guess over time. Jorge Cervantes has come up and done videos with me, and so but word of mouth is always a good way too, so I don't know, we really try to pursue a lead, if somebody calls. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. You said something about that you have sort of a marketing program for your farms. How does that work with Clean Green? What sort of marketing do you then do?
Good. Okay, that's a great. First of all, there's so much more to be developed in that. But again, because people don't realize it, pretty much this is just sort of a. I've got one administrator now working with me, and then a gal named Angela Check at Atlas Herb has been working with us now for probably the past year and a half. And when COVID came in and we were not traveling anymore, then we used that money and didn't keep it as profit, but we reinvested it into the brand. And so that every farm now, like your guys, every farm, instead of just getting a listing on our website, they get a SEO enhanced microsite so that our viewers will come see your farm on our little website and get directed straight to yours. We've got a store locator now so that all of our members can be listing all of the various outlets that they sell their product to, which is, you look at the continental United States, and I think we've got, I don't know, 1,800 outlets up there now already, and we're just now starting. And so, and then, for example, I would love to get an investor in here to expand it, because we're just ripe for expanding into all the other states as well. And I'd love to get an organization that had a broker's license, because all of our farmers would love to have a Clean Green licensed brokerage, company. And so, so we've got the microsites, we're constantly doing interviews and podcasts, and something like this will be up on Instagram. I think we're getting about 38,000 hits a month on our social medias, which isn't much, I realize, but at least it's something, it's growing. And then we're always available for members. If they're going to do a marketing rollout, they want to do a podcast, they want to do an interview, they want to do something. So we always are available there. So we're very aware of the fact that unless you get your product sold, you're not going to get certified next year, and so, and so that's where, all of this ethereal organic stuff is fine, but only if you get your product sold. And so that's why we've really invested a lot of time and a lot of money redoing our website, redoing our social medias during the COVID time when we're not spending that money traveling. So probably by next year, we'll be back out on the road a bit more. But yeah, so that's sort of how we work our marketing. Like I say, I don't know exactly what it is, but somehow or another, 350,000 pounds of trimmed flour got sold last year under the brand, and so all I know is that I wake up every morning scared to death that I'm not doing enough, so.
Yeah, well, actually, that's pretty much true of us down here as well. But listen, thank you for explaining that marketing program, because Jack, you've been listening to that, right? Jack is our social media director. So we're going to want to plug in a little bit more with you when we have some of our things. We'll just connect it up. So
absolutely. I tell people, please use us. If you're paying for it, it comes with the certification. And Jack, when you're ready, we'll let me know and we'll swap you with Angela. Because I'll bet Nikki or Swami, and I know I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So I'm just going to put you with our, and you have to market that way now. You've got to get the consumer brand. So let's make sure that your outlets are on our storefront and everything. So good.
Yeah. Well, we do look forward to being federally legal.
There's like Angela there. There you go.
Weed out there. Oh, there's Angela. Hello, Angela. Hello, nice to meet you online. Hi.
There we go.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. All right. Oh, so there's Jack. Okay, you now met each other, so we'll work making that more of a connection to happen.
And also, it is a year-round program. So if a farm, isn't quite sure how to get into it or doesn't quite know if it's, and a farm can be, part conventional, part clean green. So that's, something they don't have to be, it's just like the organic. You could have, 100 acres of non-organic tomatoes and have 5 acres of organic to see if you like the market. So there's lots of ways that we work with people, but it's a great training program for when the organic program does come in. So, and like I say, I work in both, so we're not making this stuff up. So.
Yeah.
Well,
That makes you so special, Chris, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. And thanks for your insight too. I keep saying that as well, is when all the interstate boundaries are gone and we have marketing and transportation for the whole United States, the cannabis will be grown where it grows best.
Right.
And where it grows cheapest is the other thing too. Right. So that like, for example, the hemp people, I think that's going to be mostly centered at where it always was, which is Ohio, West Virginia, whatchamacallit, Kentucky and Iowa and there, where it rains all summer, right? Out here, if you're growing cannabis in the West, you got to irrigate it. But in the Midwest, in those places, you don't have to irrigate. Cheap land, cheap labor, and so on.
I actually think that the CBD hemp industry that started in the past 5 years, where is not going to be a long-term thing, because everybody knows that if you've got pain or arthritis, you need a little bit of THC mixed with your CBD. And so in every state where you have the option of getting a THC CBD combination, that's great. I really think that people just sort of jumped on the story of like, oh, we can grow CBD hemp, but they're forgetting all the other compounds that are in there.
Exactly.
So I personally feel that even though they're beautiful plants and they're on 6x6 spacing with drip irrigation and they got big flowers, and we certify a couple 100 pounds a year, a couple 100 acres a year. And but I really think hemp is best suited for food and fiber, seed pods for protein, and just not the CBD. Right. So anyway,
well,
I don't.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the thing about we're talking about the chemovar, the chemical variety of a plant. And when we have the full plant of cannabis with the THC2, right. In fact, what you said, everybody knows. Well, in fact, the problem is, Chris, everybody doesn't know because they've been inundated with bad advertising and so on. And supposedly you buy CBD in the gas station, you don't even know if it's got CBD in there. You don't know if it has pesticides or anything.
Oh, so, God. Oh God, yes, no. Exactly. No, I mean, I got to tell you, I've been contacted by big hemp organizations that said, we're going to be in CVS in a year. And I'm like, okay, well, let's start lining up your supply lines. And they're like, no, we'll just buy it as a commodity on the world market. Well, they're buying hemp bales from wherever. You have no idea. You break the bale apart, you got a rat in there, so, I mean, this whole big explosive commercialization of CBD hemp that you see at the CVS store, you have no idea where that came from. You have no idea what it was used for. And so
it doesn't work very well either.
No,
because it is the synergy. And, I talk to people who come to the dispensary when Nikki and I will be in a dispensary or something like that. And they say, well, what are you coming here for? I'm coming for pain relief. Well, what do you get for pain relief? And what's it? He says, THC.
Yeah,
THC. Right. But the CBD is the anti-inflammatory, among other things, right? And the two together really work. And that's what we always have to remind people: the full plant, the whole plant, grown in the full sun, the way it's always been, with organic ingredients and proper care and love. That's really cannabis. Anything else is really not quite that, right? And that's we've been doing that for what, 20, 30,000 years. And so let's just keep doing it the way, because it's the most magic plant. And when it's grown that way, it produces its ultimate, the best that it can do.
I know. That's my favorite. A full season outdoor, crop. That's my favorite, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to you coming down to see us again soon, Chris. It'll be time for our
Absolutely. Looking
inspection.
forward to it.
It's
Well,
always a
thank you
fun
so
time
much.
when you
Thank
come.
you so much for inviting me to be a part of it today. It's always a
Oh, no,
pleasure.
this is great fun.
Yeah.
Great fun. It's always, you
Okay.
know, so much to learn from you.
And so
about how to do it
for any of
right.
you, just to remind you, it's cleangreencertified.com. And for all sorts of things, for help, for fertilizers, for certification, and so on and so forth. And they're very caring people, and they'll take care of you.
Yeah,
Right
and
on.
just also to remind you, in a couple weeks from today on the session, we'll be talking with Rick, who's here today, about the old days. That's going to be a whole other thing. Rick was a big smuggler back in the day, and we're going to go a little trip down memory lane about the good old days when it was illegal. Because
Right,
let's
and-
face it, it was a lot more
And
fun.
the statute
Right?
of limitations will be our guardian, our bubble of
Yeah, oh,
protection.
yeah. It was a lot.
That's
It was,
right.
yeah, definitely was. In many ways, it was much more fun. A lot of the fun
was.
is gone. A lot of the fun is
I
gone.
know.
Yeah.
I know, but it's good to know that you're always an attorney there, Chris, too. That helps as well.
Oh
So-
yeah. Good. All right, everybody.
Thanks everybody for being
Yeah,
here
thanks
as
for joining
always.
us. Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank
And,
you. Yeah,
We'll see you all next time in 2 weeks.
absolutely.
Okay, blessed
Thank you all.
Nice. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Be well.